light, dim the streets in moonlight bright. We dissect the cinematic art, real by real we pull apart.
Hey, and welcome back to Real Talk. I'm your host, Josh, and I'm thrilled to have you here for another deep dive into the world of film. If you're new to the show, welcome to the community where we don't just watch movies, we celebrate them, dissect them, shine a spotlight on those hidden gems that might have slipped under your radar. And if you've been with me for a while, you know I've got a special place in my heart for the unsung heroes of cinema. And also, I hope you enjoy our new theme music. So think about this. How many times have you stumbled upon a movie that left you completely spellbound, only to realize it didn't get the recognition it deserved? Maybe it was overshadowed by a blockbuster release the same weekend, misunderstood by critics at the time, or just a victim of bad marketing. It can be frustrating, right? These films often have all the elements of greatness, compelling stories, brilliant performances, and masterful direction. But for one reason or another, they never really found the audience that they deserved. And that's what today's episode is all about. I'm going to dive into my top 10 underrated movies. It's a carefully curated list of films that I believe flew under the radar, but deserve your full attention. These are movies that may not have been box office hits or award season darlings, but they're definitely packed with artistry, creativity, and passion. There's dystopian thrillers and animated masterpieces, some neo-noir comedies and mind-bending sci-fi. These films all span genres and styles and prove that the cinematic brilliance doesn't always come with mainstream recognition. So whether you are a diehard cinephile or someone just looking for their next great watch, this list may have something for you. There is no particular order to this, it's just 10 movies. I'm going to do it in the typical 10-9-8, but the order doesn't really matter. These are just the 10 movies that I most connected with and feel like they kind of flew under the radar. So grab your popcorn, settle in, and let's jump in to uncover these hidden treasures that are just waiting to be discovered, or for some of you, rediscovered. And I hope by the end of this episode, your watch list is going to be a bit longer. So let's get started. Let's kick off the list with a film that's often overshadowed by its bigger, flashier sibling. I'm talking about the film The 13th Floor, directed by Joseph Rusnak. This sci-fi thriller had the misfortune of being released just a month after The Matrix. The Matrix became that cultural juggernaut that completely redefined what we expected from movies exploring virtual reality and alternate worlds. Because of this timing, The 13th Floor never got the recognition it deserved. But that doesn't mean it's not worth your time. Where The Matrix dazzled with groundbreaking special effects and high-octane action, The 13th Floor took a quieter, more introspective approach to similar themes. At its core, this film is less about spectacle and more about the philosophical and emotional ramifications of living in a simulated reality. It asks unsettling questions. What defines our sense of self? How do we cope with the idea that everything we perceive might be a lie? And perhaps most chillingly, if we discovered the truth, would we even want to escape? The story follows a computer scientist who invents this fully immersive, simulated world in 1937 Los Angeles. When his mentor and collaborator is mysteriously murdered, the protagonist begins to uncover shocking truths about the nature of his creation and his own existence. The plot twists keep you guessing, and while it doesn't rely on those flashy visuals, the film's atmosphere is eerie and evocative. It pulls you into its world of paranoia and existential dread. Admittedly, The 13th Floor doesn't have the same level of polish as its contemporaries. It's a smaller film with a more modest budget, which is evident in some of its effects and production design. But what it lacks in scale, it more than makes up for with its ambition and thought-provoking narrative. If you're a fan of cerebral sci-fi like Blade Runner or Ex Machina, you'll find a lot to appreciate here. Another thing worth noting is its noir aesthetic. The sequences set in 1937 simulation are beautifully shot, and they're brimming with that old Hollywood charm. And this contrast between the sleek modern reality and the vintage simulation gives the film a unique visual identity, further setting it apart from the other sci-fi offerings of the time. So why does 13th Floor deserve a spot on this list? Well, for me, it dared to tackle complex ideas that still resonate today. In an era where discussions about AI, simulation theory, and virtual reality are becoming increasingly relevant, it might not have revolutionized anything like The Matrix, but it's a film that lingers with you. And for me, it's a 7 out of 10. It's an ambitious, eerie atmosphere, the philosophical depth, despite its limitations. So if you're a fan of sci-fi that makes you think, and maybe sends a little chill down your spine, add this one to your watch list. For number 9, let's talk about The Iron Giant, a movie that has rightfully earned its place as a cult classic, but tragically didn't get the recognition it deserved when it first hit theaters. Directed by the brilliant Brad Bird, who would later bring us The Incredibles and Ratatouille, this animated masterpiece is nothing short of a storytelling triumph. Set in the height of the Cold War, the film uses its 1950s backdrop to weave a narrative that is both deeply personal and culturally significant. On the surface, it's the story of Hogarth, a young boy who discovers a massive alien robot in the woods near his small town. But beneath the charming premise lies a profound exploration of fear, humanity, and the power of choice. The Cold War era was rife with paranoia, nuclear threats, McCarthyism, and a general mistrust of the unknown. And The Iron Giant uses this historical context to great effect. The titular giant, with its origins shrouded in mystery, becomes a symbol of that fear. Yet through his friendship with Hogarth, the film flips the script, showing us that even the most seemingly threatening other can choose to be good. The giant's journey from a weapon of destruction to a selfless hero is as inspiring as it is heartbreaking. One of the film's most powerful moments, and there are many, is when Hogarth teaches the giant, "You are who you choose to be." It's a deceptively simple line, but it encapsulates the entire message of the film. No matter what your origins or past might suggest, you have the agency to define yourself. This theme resonates universally, whether you're a child grappling with your identity or an adult facing the complexities of morality and responsibility. Another standout aspect of The Iron Giant is its timeless animation. The blend of traditional 2D animation with CGI was cutting edge for its time, and it still holds up beautifully today. The giant himself is a marvel of design. He's hulking yet emotive, imposing but still endearing. His relationship with Hogarth feels genuine and heartfelt, thanks to the film's excellent pacing and sharp writing. But let's address the elephant in the room. Why wasn't this movie a massive success when it was released? And I think the answer lies largely in poor marketing. Warner Brothers didn't seem to know how to position The Iron Giant, and as a result, it failed to draw the audience it deserved during its theatrical run. Fortunately, time has been kind to this film. The home video release and subsequent word-of-mouth praise really helped it gain the recognition it missed out on initially. Brad Bird has often spoken about how personal this project was to him, and that passion is evident in every frame. From Michael Kamen's evocative score to the nuanced voice performances, especially Vin Diesel as the Giant, it's clear that The Iron Giant was a labor of love for everyone involved. In many ways, The Iron Giant feels more relevant now than ever, in a world often divided by The fear of the unknown, its message of empathy, understanding, and choosing kindness is one we can all stand to hear again and again. For me, this film's an 8 out of 10. It's a near perfect film with emotional depth, visual beauty, and timeless appeal. If you haven't watched it or haven't seen it in a while, do yourself a favor and revisit this treasure. It's not just a movie. This is a reminder of the kind of people or robots we all have the potential to be. Now, on to number 8. Richard Linklater's A Scanner Darkly. Now, this is a film that challenges conventions and leaves this lasting impression, but it's not your typical sci-fi fare. It's adapted from the novel by Philip K. Dick. This movie explores heavy themes like addiction, surveillance, and just how fragile the human identity. The story is set in a near-future dystopia, with a powerful government agency that monitors every aspect of its citizens' lives using this invasive surveillance technology. At the center of the plot is Bob Arctor, played by Keanu Reeves, as an undercover agent tasked with spying on his friends while slowly losing his sense of self. Now, what sets this film apart isn't just its narrative, but how it's visually realized. Linklater chose to employ rotoscope animation, a technique where live-action footage is traced frame by frame to give the film a surreal, almost dreamlike quality. This decision wasn't just an artistic flex. It was a deliberate choice to blur the lines between reality and illusion, echoing the protagonist's descent into paranoia and confusion. The animation transforms ordinary scenes into something uncanny, making even mundane conversations feel otherworldly. The performances are stellar across the board. Keanu Reeves brings a quiet vulnerability to Bob, while Robert Downey Jr. and Woody Harrelson provide eccentric, often hilarious portrayals of his increasingly unhinged friends. Winona Ryder adds this air of mystery as Donna, whose motives remain ambiguous throughout the film. Together, the cast creates an ensemble that feels authentic and tragically flawed, perfectly capturing the story's themes of distrust and alienation. Despite its brilliance, A Scanner Darkly was a tough sell when it was released. Its niche appeal, experimental style, and heavy subject matter really made it more of an art house film than a mainstream blockbuster. Audiences expected a traditional sci-fi thriller, but they may have found themselves perplexed, while fans of Phil K. Dick's work or thought-provoking cinema were captivated by its layered storytelling and those existential questions. For me, what resonates most is the film's exploration of surveillance and control, issues that feel even more relevant today than in 2006. As technology continues to evolve, the world Linklater depicts feels less like fiction and more like a cautionary tale. Add to that the deeply personal portrayal of addiction, mirroring Dick's own struggles, and you have a movie that isn't just visually stunning, but also emotionally impactful. For me, the rating on this one is a 7.5 out of 10 for its innovative animation, poignant performances, and unsettlingly prescient take on societal issues. While it's not for everyone, those willing to embrace its unique style and thought-provoking narrative will find themselves deeply rewarded here. At number 7, I have Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, a 2005 neo-noir black comedy written and directed by Shane Black. If you've ever wondered what it would look like to take a traditional crime caper, toss it in a blender with some razor-sharp wit, garnish it with a heavy dose of meta humor, this is your movie. It's bold, brash, and downright hilarious, offering an unapologetically fresh spin on the genre. Let's start here with the cast. At the center of it all, a return from our previous film, is Robert Downey Jr. playing Harry Lockhart, a petty thief who accidentally stumbles into the acting world and lands himself in Los Angeles. Downey Jr. is magnetic here. He delivers this pitch-perfect mix of sarcasm, charm, and vulnerability. It's a role that feels tailor-made for him, and in many ways, it marked the beginning of his career resurgence, just a few years before he donned the Iron Man suit. Then there's Val Kilmer as Gay Perry. He's a hard-boiled detective with biting one-liners and a no-nonsense attitude. Kilmer steals every scene he's in. He brings this level of gravitas and comedic timing that balances perfectly with Downey Jr.'s more chaotic energy. And the chemistry between the two is electric. It elevates the film into something truly special. What makes Kiss Kiss Bang Bang stand out is its playful approach to storytelling. Shane Black breaks the fourth wall repeatedly, with Harry narrating the film in a way that's self-aware and hilariously irreverent. At one point, he even calls out the audience for paying too much attention to plot holes, saying, "Don't worry, I saw it too, we'll fix it later." It's the kind of cheeky humor that sets the tone and keeps you engaged from start to finish. The script is quintessential Shane Black here. It's sharp and snappy and filled with memorable dialogue. But underneath all the laughs and clever banter, there's a genuine love for the noir genre. The plot, while intentionally convoluted at times, involves murder, mistaken identity, and this labyrinth of twists that keeps you guessing. It's an homage to the pulpy detective stories of old, filtered through a modern lens and injected with Black's signature flair. So why didn't Kiss Kiss Bang Bang get the recognition it deserved? Well, timing for one. It was released in the mid-2000s, a period dominated by big-budget franchises and traditional comedies. Its unique tone and genre-blending approach may have confused some audiences of the time. And while critics largely appreciated it, the film didn't make much of a splash at the box office. But here's the thing, its influence can't be denied. The film proved that there was still a place for quirky, original storytelling in Hollywood. It also reminded us just how talented Robert Downey Jr. and Val Kilmer are. This film is pure entertainment with a sharp edge. For me, it rates an 8 out of 10. It's sharp, funny, and endlessly rewatchable, with performances that leave a lasting impression. If you're a fan of clever scripts, genre subversion, or just want a good laugh with a side of mystery, this one is a must-watch. Whether you're visiting it for the first time or revisiting it after some time away, the film feels as fresh today as it did in '05. So don't sleep on this gem. It's waiting to become one of your new favorites. At number 6, we have 2009's Moon. This is an indie sci-fi masterpiece that truly defines the term hidden gem. Directed by Duncan Jones in his debut feature, Moon takes us on an intimate and thought-provoking journey that's equal parts cerebral and emotional. This film is a testament to how much can be achieved with a minimalist approach to storytelling and a single powerhouse performance. The story revolves around Sam Bell, played brilliantly by Sam Rockwell, an astronaut stationed on the moon to oversee a mining operation. His contract is nearing its end, and he's been living in complete isolation for 3 years. His only companion being a computer system named Gertie, voiced by Kevin Spacey. On the surface, this might sound like your typical man alone in space type narrative, but Moon digs much deeper. It explores themes of identity, humanity, and the ethical boundaries of technology. Sam Rockwell's performance is extraordinary. For most of the film, he's acting opposite either himself or the monotone voice of Gertie. And yet he's able to deliver a layered, nuanced portrayal that really keeps you riveted. His journey from wearied astronaut to a man grappling with profound existential questions is both heart-wrenching and deeply relatable. Rockwell manages to convey the monotony of Sam's day-to-day life while simultaneously hinting at the unraveling mystery that drives the story forward. Speaking of mystery, Moon does a fantastic job of balancing its sci-fi elements with its human drama. The film's central twist, no spoilers here, is not just a narrative device, but a lens through which it examines what it means to be human. It raises uncomfortable questions about autonomy, corporate ethics, and the value of an individual life, all while maintaining this deeply personal and emotional core. Visually, Moon is a marvel of minimalist design. The lunar base feels both lived in and eerily sterile, a perfect reflection of Sam's mental state. The practical effects, particularly the model work for the moon's surface and mining vehicles, really give the film this tangible old-school feel that's reminiscent of classics like 2001: A Space Odyssey. Clint Mansell's haunting score really ties it all together, creating an atmosphere of isolation and introspection. Despite its brilliance, Moon had a quiet release and didn't make a huge splash at the box office. However, it has since gained a loyal following, especially among sci-fi enthusiasts who appreciate its cerebral approach. This isn't a film that relies on flashy special effects or any action-packed sequences. Instead, it draws us in with its thought-provoking themes, strong character work, and emotional resonance. For me, this sits at a 7 out of 10. The Moon excels in its core storytelling and atmosphere. It's not without its limitations. At times, the pacing can feel a bit slow, and the narrative, while profound, doesn't quite reach the sweeping emotional heights of other sci-fi dramas. But that said, it is an unforgettable experience and a film that rewards patience and thoughtfulness. It's minimalist, but emotionally potent. So if you're looking for a sci-fi film that prioritizes substance over spectacle and challenges you to think, Moon is an absolute must-watch. It's a quiet triumph that deserves far more recognition than it received during its initial run. The halfway point. Coming in at number 5 on my list is Shane Black again, this time with the 2016 film The Nice Guys, a film that truly embodies the phrase criminally underrated. This buddy cop comedy takes the genre to new heights with its unique blend of sharp humor, gritty action, and a surprisingly heartfelt narrative. It stars Ryan Gosling and Russell Crowe, two actors you might not immediately picture as a comedic duo, but boy do they deliver one of the most entertaining on-screen partnerships of the decade. Set in the smog-covered, seedy underbelly of 1970s Los Angeles, The Nice Guys follows Private Eye Holland March, played by Gosling, and Enforcer Jackson Healy, played by Crowe, as they reluctantly team up to investigate the disappearance of a young woman. What starts as a seemingly straightforward missing persons case quickly spirals into a story of corruption, conspiracy, and outrageous misadventure, all tied to the adult film industry and the rise of catalytic converters. Yes, it's as bizarre and brilliant as it sounds. What makes this film so special is Shane Black's signature touch. If you're familiar with his work, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang anyone, you know that he has a knack for blending that razor-sharp dialogue with intricate, often absurd storylines. The Nice Guys is no exception. The script is packed with witty banter, clever callbacks, and situational humor that feels fresh and organic. Black doesn't shy away from exploring the darker, more violent aspects of his character's world, and that adds layers of grit that balances out a lot of the comedy. Now let's talk about the performances. Ryan Gosling as Holland March is an absolute revelation. At the time, he's known more for serious roles in films like Drive and La La Land. Gosling goes full-on slapstick here, and it works brilliantly. Whether he's screaming in a high-pitched falsetto, drunkenly falling into a pool, or engaging in this chaotic shootout, his comedic timing is impeccable. On the flip side, Russell Crowe's Jackson Healy serves as the stoic, no-nonsense counterpart. He grounds the chaos with his gruff demeanor and unexpected vulnerability. Together, they have an undeniable chemistry that elevates every scene they share. Despite stellar reviews from critics, The Nice Guys struggled to find its audience at the box office. Some blame this on the quirky tone, which might have been hard to market to mainstream audiences. Others point to the fact that it came out during a crowded summer blockbuster season. Whatever the reason, it's a real shame, because this movie has all the ingredients of a classic: memorable characters, a wildly entertaining plot, and plenty of quotable moments. It's also worth noting how well the film captures the aesthetic of the 1970s. From the costumes to the soundtrack, the movie oozes with retro charm. Shane Black doesn't just use the setting as a window dressing, it's actually integral to the story, reflecting the political and social undercurrents of the era in a way that feels both satirical and oddly poignant. So, why does The Nice Guys land a solid 7.5 out of 10 on my scale? It's undeniably fun with standout performance and a script that crackles with energy. That said, the film has some pacing issues, particularly later in the third act, where the convoluted plot threads feel slightly overwhelming. But even with those minor flaws, The Nice Guys is a must-watch for anyone who appreciates smart, stylish filmmaking. And let's be honest, this movie deserves a sequel. There is so much potential for more adventures with March and Healy, and it's a shame we haven't seen it yet. Maybe one day, audience will rediscover this gem, and it will get the recognition that it truly deserves. If you haven't seen The Nice Guys yet, do yourself a favor, add it to your watch list. Trust me, you're in for a wild, hilarious, and thoroughly enjoyable ride. Number 4. Let's take a moment to talk about the assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford. A film that might not have set the box office on fire, but has quietly solidified itself as one of the most haunting and poetic westerns of the 21st century. Released in 2007 and directed by Andrew Dominik, this film isn't just about the infamous outlaw Jesse James, it's about the myth surrounding him. The people who live within that myth, and the inevitable betrayal that comes when legends are brought down to earth. The film opens with a pace that might initially throw you off. It doesn't rush into action or spectacle like most westerns or historical dramas. Instead, this one really takes its time, building atmosphere, establishing tone, and really focusing on the emotional complexity of its characters. And I'll admit, at first, this slower rhythm feels a bit alien, especially for those of us accustomed to much quicker plot. But trust me when I say that this pacing is deliberate. It's part of the film's greatness. This is a movie that's much more concerned with exploring the inner lives of its characters than simply telling a straightforward action story. At the heart of this film are the performances, two of the finest you'll ever see. Brad Pitt plays Jesse James, a captivating dual personality of a man, part hero, part outlaw. You just can't figure him. But Pitt doesn't simply portray the outlaw, he embodies the myth of Jesse James, that larger-than-life figure who is at the same time deeply human. There's this quiet vulnerability to his performance, a sense of inevitability. Like he knows his time is running out, but he's trapped in the persona that he's cultivated for so long. It's a performance that allows you to really feel the weight of Jesse's legend, but also the deep sadness and anger that lies beneath it. Then there's Casey Affleck, who plays Robert Ford, that titular coward in the title. Affleck gives a performance that feels almost painfully shy, inwardly tormented, and ultimately tragic. Ford is fascinated by Jesse James, but his obsession is one rooted in insecurity and jealousy. Affleck's portrayal of his complex character is subtle. It's filled with tension, and at times it's downright heartbreaking. His performance shows a man who wants desperately to be a part of something bigger than himself, but who ultimately falls prey to his own insecurities and weaknesses. The way Affleck captures the inner turmoil is incredible. He makes Robert Ford one of the most memorable, tragic figures in recent film. The cinematography, led by the absolute legend Roger Deakins, is a masterpiece in its own right. Deakins' work here elevates this film from simple Western to an absolute art form. The sweeping landscape, the intimate close-ups, the way the light plays off the vast plains, it's all captured with a painterly quality that feels almost ethereal at times. The visual storytelling is just as important as the script itself. Each frame meticulously composed to evoke mood, tension, and reflection. The film almost feels like a series of paintings, each one telling its own part of the story. Deakins makes the American West feel both breathtaking and suffocating, beautiful yet dangerous, endless yet full of despair. But perhaps what makes the film so haunting is the sense of inevitability that permeates the entire narrative. You know from the very beginning that Robert Ford is going to betray Jesse James. It's in the title after all. But the film isn't really about the whodunit aspect. It's about the why and the how. It's about how a man is both in awe of and repulsed by the myth of Jesse James ultimately has to confront that myth in the most painful way possible by becoming part of it. There's a deep, tragic irony in how Ford's obsession with Jesse James, combined with his desire for fame, leads to his eventual downfall and the ultimate assassination of the very thing he worshipped. The film's pacing and length, clocking in at just over 2.5 hours, may be a barrier for some. This is not a film that offers immediate gratification, nor is it the kind of Western where the good guy shoots the bad guy at the end and everyone rides off into the sunset. Instead, it lingers. It forces you to sit with its characters, their regrets, and their choices. This is a film that rewards patience and introspection, not fast action or flashy violence. The weight of the performances, the cinematography, and the melancholy tone all work together to create a movie that feels like a slowly unfolding tragedy. Now I get it. The assassination of Jesse James isn't going to be everyone's cup of tea. For those looking for the traditional Western, with gunfights, saloons, and clear-cut good guys and bad guys, this will feel too slow, too introspective. But if you're willing to embrace its deliberate pace and depth, I believe it's a rewarding experience. This is a film that's more about legacy and myth than it is about any single character. And that's what makes it truly so compelling. So after much thought and reflection, which is what you do, I give the film The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford an 8 out of 10. It's a visual and emotional masterpiece, one that combines incredible performances with breathtaking cinematography and a rich exploration of myth, legacy, and betrayal. It may not have received the immediate praise it deserved when it was released, but over time it's become clear that this film is a modern classic. If you haven't seen it, do yourself a favor and give it a chance. You won't forget it. Let's move on to number 3. Children of Men from 2006, directed by the visionary Alfonso Cuarón. If you haven't seen this one, or if it's been a while since you've revisited it, you're in for a treat and a shock. This film is an intense, heart-pounding journey into a future where humanity is facing its most catastrophic crisis: global infertility. No babies have been born for nearly 2 decades, and society is crumbling under the weight of hopelessness and despair. The world Cuarón creates here is bleak, but eerily real. It's a future not too far removed from our own present, where political turmoil, war, environmental collapse have pushed humanity to the brink. The streets are filled with refugees, and the once thriving cities are now oppressive landscapes of decay and violence. But at the center of this desolation, there's one flickering light of hope. A young woman, the first pregnant woman in years, who may be humanity's last chance for survival. Now, what truly elevates Children of Men from a conventional dystopian narrative into something truly remarkable is its visual storytelling. If you've seen the film, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Cuarón and his cinematographer, Emmanuel Lubezki, deliver some of the most jaw-dropping cinematography in modern cinema. I'm talking about those long, unbroken tracking shots, especially in the film's action sequences. They immerse you so deeply into the world that you almost feel like you're right there with the characters. These aren't just flashy gimmicks or stylistic flourishes. They truly serve a narrative purpose. They place you in the chaos. They make you feel that tension, that the stakes are higher, and the world is now more immediate. You're a part of it. Take, for example, the infamous car chase scene, which unfolds in a single, unbroken shot. The intensity of the moment is wrapped up by not just the action, but by the lack of cuts, giving us this visceral sense of being trapped in this nightmare world. It's masterful filmmaking, and it demands attention. But it's not just about the technical brilliance. The heart of Children of Men is its deeply human story. Clive Owen plays Theo, a disillusioned man who gets caught up in a mission to protect this young woman, Key, played by Claire Hope Ashitay, who's carrying the first child in years. Owen's performance is stunning, subtle, nuanced, and perfectly capturing the weight of a man who's lost his faith in humanity, but finds something worth fighting for in the most unlikely of circumstances. There's a quiet desperation in his eyes, and as the film progresses, you see him evolve from someone who's just trying to survive to someone who's willing to risk everything for a future he never thought possible. The film is also anchored by an incredible supporting cast, including Michael Caine as a weed-smoking, peace-loving ex-activist, and Julianne Moore, who plays a pivotal role in the early parts of the film. The cast, combined with the stark, realistic world, makes Children of Men feel grounded, despite the higher concept premise that it has. What truly sets it apart from other dystopian thrillers is its exploration of hope in the face of hopelessness. In a world that feels irreparably broken, the arrival of a baby symbolizes the possibility of redemption, the chance for humanity to rise from the ashes of its own self-destruction. It's a deeply political film, examining themes of immigration, human rights, and the fragility of civilization. But at its heart, it's about the universal longing for hope, for purpose, and for a reason to keep going when everything seems lost. When Children of Men was released, it didn't set the box office on fire. It was critically acclaimed, sure, but it didn't make a huge splash with audiences. The film's dark tone, its challenging themes, and its bleak portrayal of the future probably didn't make it the easiest sell for mainstream moviegoers. Over time, its reputation has grown. It's now regarded as one of the best sci-fi films of the 21st century, if not one of the best films, period, and with good reason. This isn't just a great dystopian thriller, it's a towering achievement in filmmaking. The way Cuarón crafts tension, the way he makes you feel the weight of the world on his character's shoulders, the way he weaves in such rich, complex social commentary, all of this makes Children of Men not just a must-see, but a must-think. It challenges the way we see the world and asks difficult questions about our future. It forces us to reflect on the consequences of our actions today in a way few other films have done. In terms of its overall impact on cinema, it is clear that Children of Men has earned its place as one of the most influential films of its decade. It paved the way for other filmmakers to experiment with long takes, handheld camera work, and immersive visual storytelling. Its blend of deep social commentary with edge-of-your-seat tension continues to resonate with viewers, particularly in an era where global issues like immigration, climate change, and political instability are at the forefront of our collective consciousness. So after all that, I make my rating. This is a 10 out of 10. For me, Children of Men is without a doubt a cinematic triumph. This is harrowing, thought-provoking, and utterly unforgettable. If you have not seen it, or it has been a while, do yourself a favor and experience it again. This is a film that'll stay with you long after the credits roll, and if you have seen it, then you already know exactly why it belongs in the conversation of all-time greats. This is a movie that deserves far more recognition than it got upon release, but thankfully, over the years, it's found its place in the pantheon of sci-fi masterpieces. That's it for Children of Men, a film that asks, what are we willing to fight for even when all seem lost? It's a question that still resonates, especially in today's world. Number 2, let's talk about 2014's Edge of Tomorrow, a film, in my opinion, that didn't get nearly the recognition it deserved when it first hit theaters. Directed by Doug Liman, this movie is a perfect example of how the right mix of clever writing, exciting action, and solid performances can lead to a genuinely great film that unfortunately slips through the cracks. At its heart, Edge of Tomorrow is essentially Groundhog Day meets Starship Troopers, and I'm here for it. The premise is brilliantly simple, but complex in its execution. Tom Cruise plays Major William Cage, a public relations officer who's never seen battle, but gets thrown into the fight against an alien invasion. After a brutal death on the battlefield, Cage mysteriously wakes up, and it's the same day all over again. The twist? He keeps reliving the same day, every time dying in battle and waking up in the same spot like a broken record. However, the more times he dies, the more he learns about the alien enemy and himself. Now, we've seen time-looping films before, Groundhog Day being the most iconic example, but what makes Edge of Tomorrow stand out is how it takes the concept and makes it fresh. It's not just about reliving the same day, it's about how Cage uses the knowledge gained from each death to adapt improve, and outsmart these alien forces. The concept of restarting is integral not only to the plot, but also to Cage's character arc. You watch him grow from this cowardly, self-absorbed man into a seasoned soldier, and it's genuinely satisfying to see that transformation. Of course, Edge of Tomorrow wouldn't be what it is without Emily Blunt's performance as Sergeant Rita Vratoski, the only person who knows how to fight these alien invaders, and the one who helps Cage navigate his predicament. Blunt absolutely kills it in this role. She's tough, commanding, but still surprisingly vulnerable. The chemistry between her and Cruz is magnetic. Watching these two navigate the repetitive loop is one of the film's greatest pleasures. Their banter and growth together bring real heart to what could have easily been just another mindless action film. But here's the thing, despite stellar reviews and generally positive reception, Edge of Tomorrow didn't perform well at the box office. And that's where the movie's journey takes an interesting turn. The film's marketing campaign was less than stellar, with the whole live, die, repeat tagline being used in a way that confused potential viewers about what the movie was actually about. It didn't help that the film's title was constantly switched between Edge of Tomorrow and Live, Die, Repeat, leading to a bit of a marketing nightmare. A lot of people just didn't know what to make of it. And with big budget blockbusters like Transformers, Age of Extinction really dominating that summer, Edge of Tomorrow just couldn't find its footing. However, thanks to the word of mouth and strong home video and streaming presence, Edge of Tomorrow has gained a well-deserved following. And let me tell you, it's one of those films that does get better with each rewatch. The action scenes are tight and thrilling, especially when the Cage there is using the time loop knowledge to plan out new attacks. There's also a dark humor to the premise that allows for some lighthearted moments amidst all this chaos, and the film never really takes itself too seriously. When I first decided to watch Edge of Tomorrow, I'll admit I had a few reservations. I was skeptical of the concept, thinking it was just another big-budget action flick with a recycled plot. But the film surprises you in every way. It manages to balance high-octane action with a smart narrative structure, and its pacing keeps you engaged without feeling rushed or dragged out. It's the kind of movie that hooks you from the get-go and doesn't let go until the very end. But, and this is where I'm going to give it a bit of a caveat, while I do love this movie, I've also come to realize it has a few small flaws. For one, its supporting characters are a bit underdeveloped to the point where they're almost non-existent, and there's this slight over-reliance on the reset gimmick in the later stages. And the ending, it's satisfying in a way, but it feels a bit rushed, leaving some questions unanswered. But overall, these are more minor quibbles in an otherwise fantastic and fun film. In terms of rating, I give Edge of Tomorrow a 6.5 out of 10. Why 6.5 and not higher? Well, for me, this movie represents a perfect balance of rewatchable brilliance. It's fun, it's smart, it's emotional at times, but it doesn't quite reach those levels of perfection you'd see in a top-tier all-time classic. The pacing and writing are strong, but the minor flaws in character development and the ending prevent it from being that 9 or 10. That said, the film is still a must-watch for anyone who enjoys sci-fi, action, or time loop narratives. Or if you just have a couple hours to waste and you want to eat some popcorn, watch this movie. It's one of those movies that over time has grown in stature and recognition, and if you haven't seen it yet, now is definitely the time to give it a shot. Because trust me, once you watch it, you'll be thinking about that loop for days. And now, let's tick off that number one spot on my list, 2006's The Prestige, directed by Christopher Nolan. Now, if you're familiar with Nolan's work, you know he's a master of complexity. He's the guy behind Inception, The Dark Knight, Interstellar, Dunkirk, and so many more. But while those films have dominated discussions and earned countless accolades, there's one film in his catalog that often flies under the radar, despite being basically a masterpiece, and that film is The Prestige. Set in the late 19th century, The Prestige is this cerebral thriller about two magicians, played by Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale, locked in a bitter rivalry. What starts as a friendly competition quickly spirals into an obsession, with both men pushing the limits of their craft and their morality to outdo each other. This is a film that examines obsession, sacrifice, and the cost of greatness, all wrapped up in a clever narrative that'll keep you guessing from start to finish. Now, when it was first released, The Prestige didn't receive that same level of attention or accolades as his later work like Inception and Dark Knight. Sure, it got some critical praise. It was nominated for 2 Academy Awards, but compared to those other films, it didn't have the same mainstream buzz. And that's a real shame, because in my opinion, The Prestige, along with Memento, might just be one of Nolan's most emotionally resonant films. Something you wouldn't expect from a movie about magicians and illusions. The thing that really sets the film apart for me is its structure. It's like a magic trick in itself. Nolan uses nonlinear storytelling, flipping between different timelines to weave a complex, intricate plot that builds on itself with each passing act. At first, it can be a little disorienting, but once you start to piece everything together, it's a revelation. Just like Memento. And just like any good magic trick, the film rewards repeated viewings. The more you watch, the more you pick up on subtle details, hints, and foreshadowing that you probably missed the first time. It's a puzzle that's fun to reassemble. And let's talk about the performances, because I think that's where The Prestige really excels. Hugh Jackman and Christian Bale give some of their best work here. Jackman plays Robert Angier, a magician whose obsession with being the best leads him to take increasingly dangerous risks. Bale plays Alfred Borden, a rival magician whose own obsession with perfection drives him to keep his greatest secrets close to his chest. The tension between the two characters is palpable, and both actors bring incredible depth to their roles. Bale, in particular, pulls off a performance that's enigmatic and haunting, showing just how far he's willing to go for his craft. And Jackman, well, he's a revelation. His character is charismatic, but deeply flawed, and Jackman gives him that raw, unfiltered intensity that makes you believe in the madness of his pursuit. Of course, no conversation about The Prestige would be complete without talking about the final twist, and I promise I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it's a game changer. I remember the first time I saw the film, and the twist hit me like a ton of bricks. It's one of those twists that feels earned. Nothing about it feels cheap or gimmicky, even though it completely flips everything you thought you understood about the film. It's a beautiful, satisfying conclusion to a story that's kept you on your toes the whole time. In many ways, the twist defines the film, making it unforgettable. Visually, the film is stunning. The cinematography by Wally Pfister, who worked on many of Nolan's films, is exquisite, perfectly capturing the Victorian-era setting while enhancing the film's sense of mystery and intrigue. The editing, too, is masterful. It keeps the story flowing seamlessly between past and present, and that tight pacing adds to the feeling of mounting suspense. There's a rhythm to the film that mirrors the structure of a magic trick itself. Carefully laid out, precise, deliberate, but always with the promise of something breathtaking coming around the corner. But as much as The Prestige is a thrilling story about magic and illusion, it's also a deeply emotional film. It's about the price of ambition, the things we're willing to sacrifice in order to succeed. It's about identity and what happens when we lose ourselves in our obsessions. And it's about the lengths to which we'll go for recognition, love, and revenge. At its heart, it's a film about human nature, and Nolan does an incredible job of weaving these themes into a narrative that is as intellectual as it is emotional. So why does The Prestige deserve to be on this list? Well, because in my opinion, it's a film that is criminally underrated. It's overshadowed by Nolan's more popular works, but it's just as complex, just as layered, and just as emotionally resonant. It may not have garnered the widespread attention it deserved back in '06, but over time, I think it's become a film that's gained a dedicated following, and rightfully so. For me, The Prestige is an 8 out of 10. While I consider it one of Nolan's best films, it's still a little niche for some viewers. Its intricate storytelling can be off-putting if you're not in the mood for a puzzle. But for those who appreciate a movie that challenges you and rewards you for paying attention, this is an absolute masterpiece. It's a cinematic magic trick that never gets old, and every time you watch it, I think you'll be amazed all over again. So if you haven't seen The Prestige yet, do yourself a favor, watch it. And if you have seen it, go back and watch it again. Because trust me, there's always something new to discover. And just like that, we've reached the end of today's episode. There you have it. 10 underrated gems that I think deserve a place on your watch list. Whether it's a mind-bending thriller, an emotional roller coaster, or just a hidden gem that slipped through the cracks of mainstream cinema, I think each of these films brings something unique to the table. We've talked about the emotional depth, the innovative storytelling, and the sheer entertainment value of these movies. And I hope some of them have sparked your interest. So now I want to hear from you. Which of these films have you seen? Which one are you most excited to check out after listening today? Maybe there's one that's been on your radar but never got around to it. Or perhaps you've already watched a couple and loved them, and just as much as I did. And I'm sure you've got a list of your own underrated favorites. Movies you think didn't get the recognition they deserved. What are they? Drop me a line and let's keep this conversation going on social media or the comment sections of the podcast platform. I'm always looking for new films to add to my list, so your suggestions are always welcome. And for our social media, we're on Instagram and Threads at RealRealTalk, or you can email us, therealrealtalk@gmail.com. I love to interact, so please reach out. And as always, I can't thank you enough for tuning in to Real Real Talk. It means the world to me that you're here. I hope you're enjoying these episodes and exploring the world of cinema with me. And if you have been enjoying the show, don't forget to subscribe and make sure you've got your notifications turned on so you don't miss an episode. Every week, we uncover cinematic treasures that you might have missed, and I can't wait to keep sharing them with you. But before I sign off, let me give you a little teaser for what's coming up next time. On Real Real Talk, we're going to shift gears a bit. While we've spent today diving into underrated films, next time we'll be diving into the world of movie soundtracks. And not just any soundtracks. These are my top 10 movie soundtracks, my favorites. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, the soundtrack can completely elevate a movie. It can bring an emotional punch to a scene, set the entire tone of a film, or become just as iconic as the movie itself. So in the next episode, I'll be breaking down my favorite movie soundtracks, the ones that stick with me, and you're going to want to hear which scores made my list, and I'm sure you've got a few of your own favorites that I'll want to talk about. So trust me, I think it's going to be another fun ride. Until then, I want you to keep watching and keep appreciating the art of film. Every movie has something to offer, whether it's a new perspective, a fresh take on an old story, or just a chance to lose yourself in a new world. Keep exploring those lesser-known gems and discovering the hidden treasures that make film such a magical experience. Thanks again for joining me today. I'll catch you next time right here on Real Real Talk. Until then, keep watching, keep loving, and keep those reels rolling.
dissect the cinematic art. Reel by reel we pull apart. The real talk where voices play with velvet words and starlit sway. Reviewing tales both light and dark. Classic films that leave a mark. Dive deep